come back to you in a moment or two's time. Let's say good morning to Frederika.
Morning.
Now, what country do you represent, Frederika? Which hat have you got on today?
Well, I've got the Italian hat on, but I suppose I represent Italy, Germany and Luxembourg because that's where I grew up, so...
You're marvellous. You're like a sort of rainbow of a person. Well, you are Italy today.
Yes.
How come you're here? Don't tell me, love.
Well, university initially. So because I grew up in Luxembourg, there was no university in the tiny little country of Luxembourg at the time. I'd gone to the European school, so I'd done lots and lots of subjects in English, and I looked at the different systems for universities in different European countries. I had the pick of Europe, and I picked the UK. I love the UK, and I wanted to come to the UK. I loved the university system, and then, yes, while I was at university, love happened. And so, yes, I came to Yorkshire. I went to uni in Bradford, and I've stayed in Yorkshire. And the reason I'm here today is because I do a lot of work in North Yorkshire with schools as well. So I've got a British husband, I've got tri-nationality daughters, and yes, to me, it's just whilst I can understand a lot of reasons why a lot of people voted to leave, because of the concerns that they had, a lot of them unfounded, a lot of them based, unfortunately, on lies. But I can understand the sort of bubbling resentment that has built up there. But actually, the reality is, when we're now looking at the negotiations that are happening, that whatever people have been promised is not what's going to happen. And you talked about sovereignty there, and you know, you see, I say we because I've been here for 27 years. The UK never lost sovereignty. It will lose sovereignty if Brexit goes ahead, and I am saying if, because I'm still campaigning very hard to stop that from happening.
Really? Because as far as most people are concerned, you know, and I've been very careful today on air to say when, not if, because that's the majority will, the democratic will of 52% of the British population.
It's the will of 52% of the people who voted at the time, 2 years ago nearly, and that's actually about 24% of the population, about 37% of those eligible to vote, and actually people are allowed to change their minds as well, you know.
Nobody wants to change their mind, not that they've told us this morning. What are your fears? What are your practical concerns? I mean, a lot of people regard this as a little bit of, you know, theoretical this and that and billions of pounds and EU regulations that don't really seem to touch most people's lives on a moment-to-moment, year-by-year basis. What are your actual practical concerns about what Brexit might mean?
Too many to mention in the short time, so let's talk about people's lives. We're all in limbo, and you know, we as EU citizens in the UK are in limbo, as are all our family members, because if something happens to one of us, that affects the entire family and extended family. Lots of Brits living in the other EU countries are in limbo at the moment, and the country is in limbo in terms of what's going to happen.
But I mean, what for you though? What for your family? What could this mean? Will there be circumstances where Brexit will make things difficult?
Okay, so I will have to apply at the moment, as things stand, for settled status. Settled status is actually a loss of rights as it stands, and I will have to physically apply. It's not a registration, it's an application. And the Home Office at the moment, when it comes to getting confirmation of our right to actually be here, have about a 10% error rate, and have, you know, they've been appalling in terms of sending 100 letters out to people telling them that they were going to get kicked out. So the error rate is appalling. When you've got millions of people applying in a short space of time, that error rate is likely to go up. The government are trying to put through laws that are going to stop us from accessing our data. So if there is an error, we won't even be able to access that data to look at what's gone wrong. So where is the recourse? Where is the protection? We will then be left in this hole. So I personally could be left in this hole, even if I am eligible to stay, just because of an error in which I can't access the data. I have no right of appeal in any kind of realistic way. And I am then subject to the Home Office's hostile environment, which means they can freeze my bank account, they can take my driving license away, they can basically make my life here impossible.
Having met you this morning, just briefly, I wouldn't dare do any of those things to you. I simply wouldn't dare. We're going to speak to our third and smiles all around. Well, there we are. Food certainly brings people together. Frederika, I think you've been perhaps one of the most outspoken people this morning, and you happen to be sitting next to Java, who's our guest from Lithuania. You two seem to have very different views, because you say, yeah, come on, bring it on. Britain can make a go of this. You, Frederika, say, this is worried. What do you say to one another, just very briefly?
Well, for Frederika, I really do believe that it's gonna come out okay, you know, and it will be a cost. We know that, but we as residents who already been living here, I don't believe that we're gonna be that affected that much, you know.
Frederika,
Really.
convinced?
I'm afraid not. No, I mean, for a start, why should there be a cost? You know, we don't have to do this. And as for what will happen to us as EU citizens, I think we are already affected emotionally. We're affected from the stress. And actually, there's a book in Limbo, if you haven't read it, that has testimonies from EU citizens and from UK citizens in the EU that bears witness to just how painful this has been for a lot of us.
Okay, to Antje from Germany with a hand up.